Hello and welcome. My name is Dustin Blanford, and this is the Unlucky Podcast. Um, if you're new to the podcast or just my YouTube channel in general, then you should know that most of what I make is. I don't know if you're getting any negative feedback from this mic or not. So if you are, I'm sorry. Just bear with me. I'll do what I can in editing, but most of what I try and do is jokingly, lighthearted, making fun of myself and sometimes others. But this one is going to be a lot different. So if this is the first time that you have checked and seen what I'm doing, know that this isn't what I normally do, but this is probably more important than what I normally do. So when I initially set out to make this episode, I was going to talk about depression, anxiety, and suicide because those are some things that have impacted my life. But now there is something that's more pressing that came up. Actually, the night that I had originally sat down to record this, I'd gotten a call saying, your mom has gotten more sick because, I'd already known that she was sick. She had gotten COVID and was basically at the hospital doing what she could. Then it progressed and the COVID seemed to go away. And she decided she wanted to go back home. Went back home, and then a couple days later, it got to the point to where she couldn't breathe. She was taking short, shallow breaths, and just had to go back to the hospital and be put on a ventilator. Well, it turned out that her COVID had turned into pneumonia, and that her lungs had basically shut down. And when it becomes as bad as it was, it's either the point of pull the plug or make her live a quality of life that no person should have to, type of thing. So we got together as a family and made the decision to do what she would have wanted. It has been probably the hardest thing that I've had to do through my life of now 24 years. And there was so much because when it's a high pressure, like high stress environment like that, because this had all happened over the span of a week and a half or so. And it's just like everything adds on top of it. So kids and just drama and family and everything just seems to compact it and make it so much worse than it already is. And I did have some family drama, some of which I will get into, some of which I won't. But the part that I won't, I had a family member come kind of like take me to the side and just be like, hey, don't let this make what's already a hard time make it even harder. And I was like, that's pretty smart, and I needed to hear that because that's exactly what I would have went and done. Just taking a situation that was already volatile and stressful and just making it worse by being angry. Not angry at one particular person or anything, just everything. Just angry because of the situation. But there was one moment that we was able to come together and laugh in a sort of way. Because that's all it is. When something like this happens, you cry and you scream and you're angry and it's confusing. It really is. None of it makes sense. And the biggest part that I saw that didn't make any sense to me is you're a person who just lost someone close to you and is going through trauma. But instead of giving you space and allowing you to process what's going on in your life, the funeral home, everybody just attacks you with questions. And most of them are people that's trying to be considerate or beneficial towards you. But just the way I am, all of those questions aren't beneficial, I guess. I mean, I appreciate anytime somebody says, sorry for your loss or that they're thinking of me or whatever. I appreciate those things, but it's also just like every time you say that, I might not have been thinking about it in that moment. And then you say something and boom, brings me right back to thinking about it. But the moment that had happened that I was talking about, so we went and was at my mom's house, was where we were staying. And my stepsister had some friends over, which, I didn't really feel like it was appropriate at the time, but, whatever. So we're sitting there maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the middle of the night, about to go to sleep, and her friend comes and walks straight through the living room with two, metal spoons, just clacking them together like, fucking look at me. This camera could fall over at any minute because this table is wobbly as shit. But yeah, she came through with two spoons, just clacking them together, and everybody's face is like, I'm going to go do something with these spoons, And there's only so many things that you can do with two spoons at 1 o'clock in the morning, and 95% of them ain't legal, like. So we all noticed it and we stood out on the front porch like, hey, if she's doing this crap, we don't need her in the house, right? We don't need this shit around the kids, because there was 3 kids at the house, all under the age of 8 years old. And it's just not a good environment, right? Not the right environment for that shit. So she came back and I was like, where's those spoons at? And she was like, oh, I got it right here. I was eating yogurt. And I was like, oh, you was eating yogurt? And she was like, yeah, we was eating yogurt. And we went and smoked some weed. And my friend got some yogurt, so we was eating some yogurt. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Weed, weed's whatever. Then her friend that had dropped her off was still sitting in the middle of the road. So Kelly was like, hey, go ask them if they had yogurt. Just go ask them if anybody ate yogurt. So I did, and there were 2 people in the car that I could see. In the front driver's seat was a guy whose cheekbones were like popping halfway out of his face, just chugging. Like if this was a thing of milk, he was just like had it turned up. And then a girl in the seat beside of him, just sitting there, like staring straight forward, eyes like this, like. And I walked up, just being nice, like, "Hey, did anybody eat yogurt?" And they looked at me like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, did anybody in here have any yogurt?" And they were like, "No." Okay, thank you. I went back and then told them, like, nobody had no yogurt. I don't know what she's talking about. So then ended up confronting her and telling her that she needed to leave. That wasn't really the part that made me laugh, though. The part that made everybody laugh was after everything had happened and I was sitting there, we were still out on the front porch and I was sitting there talking to Kelly. She just looked at me and was like, I can't take you serious because, I was still walking around like pacing angry and shit, just talking. And she was, I can't take you seriously right now when you have a giant booger just hanging out of your nose. And, we all just stopped and laughed. And because it just figures, right? I'm angry at this situation and like everybody else is angry, but then it's hard to be taken seriously when you have a fucking like bat hanging out of your nose. Um, but yeah, so I don't know how much I want to say on here about my mom passing. Like, um, I loved her. She was one of the strongest people I know, and she's not going to be forgotten by anybody. So that's really, I don't need to say anything on here to like prove any point or anything, I guess, but that's all I have to say about that. I want to talk about depression. And right now, as much as any time in my life, I'm having to overcome depression. And so, just a little background, I've talked about it in videos and stuff, on the episodes before. But just growing up, there was a lot of anger in my household. And then through different stages, there's other things that, happen through every person's life that can make you depressed, whether it's the girl you like doesn't like you back or a member of your family passing. The hardest thing to do when you are depressed is the things you have to do to get out of depression, right? So if you're depressed, you want to lay in bed, eat, do nothing. Sometimes not even have the energy to turn your head over and turn on the TV. So sometimes the hardest part is getting the energy to want to live, just putting it bluntly, like just wanting to live. Um, so the biggest thing that I'm doing, especially right now, is just keeping myself busy. That's why I'm making this. That's why I'm posting other videos. I'm doing what I can right now to stay busy and also taking the time to sit back and process what's going on. Because if you don't, then it's going to hit me 30 years later by having a heart attack. And they'll be like, oh, what happened? He was perfectly healthy. Yeah, well, I had some trauma back in my life that I had to get rid of. So, just deal with your shit. That's the biggest thing. Um, my my stepdad, David, he okay, so my mom moved to Indiana when I don't even know how old I was, 7, 8 years ago. So, oh God, I'm 24 now. Somebody else do the math. I don't know. It was somewhere around then. She moved to Indiana and we still lived here. She moved up there, started having a relationship with this guy named David. They were together in high school, and it's the person that she had always wanted to be with, right? They got together, got married, were living happy for multiple years. Flash forward a couple years, they now have an adopted kid, and David likes to drink. David always liked to drink. He was the type of guy that he would wake up, and by the time he went to bed that same day, he would have a 24-pack drunk, right? And the strong beers too, because I know sometimes I would be like getting off of work and I would just want a beer, and I would be like, yeah, David, I'll drink a beer with you, and he gets those like Keystone's lights, and I don't know if you know what those are, but they are some strong ass nasty beers, and he would just put them back, right? Well, he struggled with depression and stuff also, and went to the doctor. The doctor was like, you got to slow down your drinking. We're going to give you this pill to help with your depression that can hopefully help you stop drinking. Well, that's not what happened. Um, the pill and the alcohol ended up making him have a chemical imbalance in his brain that affected the depression so bad to the degree that the only way that he saw out was through suicide. Um, so that happened almost 3 years ago and some change, a little bit over 3 years ago. And almost 3 or 4 days after David died, 3 years and a couple days later, is when my mom passed. So it was kind of like I was still processing losing David because mine and his relationship was so rocky at points because I just, for whatever reason, didn't like him. Um, for no reason, really didn't. Just because I was angry with my mother, so I just took it out on him also. And um, you just find when people pass that you keep thinking back to the things that you wanted to do or wanted to say. And it's usually not anything that you haven't said before or wouldn't like haven't said at all. It's usually not, it's just little stuff. Like, I wish I could just call my mom again and just complain about whatever stupid assholes in traffic, because that's who my mom was for me. She was the person that minor inconveniences in my day, I could call her and she would sit there and listen to it and be on my side, like a mom should be. And just loss in and of itself is a thing that humans are still trying to understand, because it's almost like in these moments, me, a person who's not religious whatsoever, I believe that there is some sort of higher power, but it's not any type that we know or have assigned. Um, but it's like as soon as something like this happens, me, a person who's not religious, starts going, please help me, So it really makes a person like me think, am I just doing this because I'm desperate, or am I doing this because there's something out there, or, just asking questions that you're never going to get the answer to until maybe you pass away and you find out the answers, whether there's something up there or not, if the story continues or if it's just over. The biggest thing that I do want to stress through this whole thing is, if you can't afford therapy because therapy is expensive, there are things that you can do yourself to help yourself. I have started writing notes. Like, I'll write notes to my mom, or just doing things that relax you, right? Like, what relaxes me can be anything from writing to recording to getting in the car and having a podcast on and zone out for an hour and a half. But just find your thing that helps you turn the noise off and don't feel bad for where your mind goes. Because I kept telling myself, you're not thinking about it enough, you're not crying enough, you should have done this, you should have done that, and none of that is constructive or helpful to the situation that you're going through. So just take it one day at a time and just keep going, especially with the suicide. With people die every day from causes that can't be helped, and that's all it is. You can't help it. But with suicide, that is something that we can help, and it's something that we can. If you don't know that somebody's struggling, you don't know that they're struggling. But we can have a more open dialogue as a society, and that's the way that we're heading now. But we can feel like it's more okay to talk about it, because I'm not so close with some of the other people. We were closer when we were kids, but there were also people around my age around this time that have also died. And it's just hard because you don't want everybody should be able to, I use that story analogy, everybody should be able to see their story to the end all the time, right? Nobody's story should be cut off in the middle of a sentence. And anything you can do, I'm 100% all up for going and smoking some weed or having a drink and just relaxing. But when it gets to the point to where you're like, oh, let me go do some pills or this or that, or the harder stuff that can actually alter your mind to the point to where if you don't have it, you are thinking about just dying because you need that next fix so bad. I mean, if I go a couple days without weed, I'm angry and I'm wanting it. And I'm thinking about, man, I wish I could smoke again, but I'm not going to lose myself to it, right? But I feel like so many people talk about anxiety that it's almost like everybody has it now. And it's proven that anxiety is different for everyone. My form of anxiety that I go through is basically just, I had an idea for a video just displaying how my mind works, right? So it's basically like, okay, I'm sitting here talking now through this train of thought, but as this train of thought is going on, there's another train of thought, like in between each one of those words that's going on. And in between each one of those gaps, I keep on having multiple trains of thoughts within them, each other, and they all collapse in. And it's very confusing and overwhelming at times. And mine doesn't so much appear in social situations, more so in situations where I don't feel like I can have control. And it doesn't have to be a lot of control. I don't have to be in control of every aspect. But if it's just like, I know I'm going into this room, and as soon as I go, like jail, like when I went into jail each time, it was very, very anxiety ridden, right? It just kept on piling up, and I didn't feel comfortable, and that's what it was. But anxiety, it's just, I feel like I preach meditation, but I don't do it. Like it's a hard thing to get up and do every day. But like I said, just find your meditation. Don't find someone else's. Find what takes you and relaxes you and enforce it, right? That's something that I've been really pushing with Zelda. I've just been like, are you angry? Okay, we'll count to 10. Count to 10, and then we can talk about why you're angry, right? This video is almost to an end now. I'm going to have to make it 2 parts just because YouTube won't let me upload over 15-minute long videos because not enough people have subscribed. So if you are watching this, please subscribe. Go watch my other stuff. I'm going to be coming out with more content. I love you, Mom. I love you, David. And you know what? To actually end this on a brighter note, my son, Leo, who is still on the way, he is looking good. He's getting so big now. He's at the point to where when he kicks, I can feel like the other day he was stretching out and I could feel his like entire little foot just pushing up against my hand. And that was probably one of the coolest things that I've been able to have happened to me, right? That there's just nothing like it. It's not describable to people that haven't had that feeling, right? Yeah, but I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Until next time, best of luck.